The black ships came from the void like hungry shadows. Thousands of them, each one the size of a city, their hulls covered in strange patterns that seemed to move in the starlight. They had traveled across the galaxy for months to reach this small blue planet that orbited a yellow star. Commander Vex Thule stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the primitive world through the viewing screen. His 4 arms moved across the control panels as he checked the data his scouts had gathered. The planet was called Earth by its people. The beings who lived there called themselves humans. Such a young species, Vex Thule said to his officers. His voice was deep and rough, like grinding stone. They have only been sending radio signals for 100 of their years. They still use chemical rockets to barely reach their own moon. The other officers around him nodded. They had seen this many times before. Young civilizations were always the easiest to conquer. They had weak weapons, no shields, and no idea that death was coming from the stars. What about their military strength? Asked Subcommander Kretak, her scaled face showing curiosity. Vex Thule pulled up the intelligence reports on his screen. They have nuclear weapons, but very few. Their biggest bombs could destroy a city. Maybe 2. They fight with metal bullets and simple explosives. Their fastest ships cannot even leave their solar system. The bridge crew laughed. Nuclear weapons that could destroy cities sounded impressive to primitive minds. But the hegemony had weapons that could crack planets in half. A species that could not even travel between stars was like an insect trying to fight a dragon. How many soldiers do they have? Another officer asked. Perhaps 8 billion total population. Maybe 50 million who can fight. They are divided into many small nations that often war with each other. They have never faced a real threat from space. Vex Thule had conquered 17 worlds before this one. Each time, the pattern was the same. The hegemony fleet would arrive at the edge of the system. The local species would panic. Maybe fire a few desperate shots, then surrender when they realized how hopeless their situation was. After that came the occupation, the processing centers, and the labor camps. The humans would follow the same pattern they always did. Begin standard approach protocol, Vex Thule ordered. All ships maintain battle formation. Weapon systems to ready status. We will give them one chance to surrender before we begin orbital bombardment. After the formant. OMC. After the formant. After the formant. OMC. The massive fleet moved deeper into the solar system. They passed the outer planets. Gas giants that meant nothing to the hegemony except as potential fuel sources. The ships moved in perfect formation, their bioorganic hulls pulsing with energy. As they crossed the orbit of the 6th planet, Vex Thule opened a channel to address the humans. This was standard procedure. Give them a chance to see the size of the fleet. Let fear sink in. Then, offer terms. Attention, inhabitants of the planet Earth. His voice boomed across all radio frequencies. I am Commander Vex Thule of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You have one of your hours to signal your complete surrender. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your major population centers. Then they waited. This was often the most interesting part for Vex's Thule. Some species begged. Others tried to bargain. A few brave ones made threats they could not back up. But they all eventually surrendered when they saw what they were facing. The hour passed. No surrender signal came from Earth. Commander, reported the communications officer. We are receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it on screen, Vex Thule said. Let us see how they choose to beg for mercy. The screen flickered to life. But instead of a frightened leader offering surrender, they saw something else. A human male, middle-aged with gray hair, sat calmly behind a simple desk. He wore no military uniform, no royal robes, nothing that marked him as important. Greetings, the human said in perfect galactic common. the language used across the Empire. "We have received your message. Thank you for the advance notice." Vex Thul felt his blood grow cold. The human was not afraid. Worse, he spoke their language fluently. How could a primitive species know Galactic Common? The human continued. "We appreciate the time you have given us to prepare our response. Please stand by for our reply." The transmission ended. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then, the communications officer spoke, his voice shaking slightly. "Commander, we are detecting a new transmission from Earth, but it is not directed at us." "What do you mean?" "The signal is being broadcast in all directions. It is going out to the entire galaxy on quantum relay channels." Vex Thul's hearts began to beat faster. Quantum relay channels were advanced technology. Primitive species did not have quantum relay channels. "What is the message?" he demanded. The officer's hands moved over his controls, his face growing pale. "It contains coordinate sets for 17 different star systems, timestamps, and 3 words in Galactic Common." "What words?" "We are ready." The bridge fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. Vex Thul stared at the screen, his mind racing. 17 coordinate sets. 17 star systems. The same 17 systems the hegemony had conquered over the past 5 years. The systems that had gone mysteriously silent over recent months. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vex Thul felt something he had not experienced since he was young. Fear. The quantum transmission continued to repeat across the galaxy. Every few minutes. The same coordinates. The same timestamps. The same 3 words. "We are ready." Vex Thul paced the bridge, his 4 arms moving nervously. In all his years of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. Primitive species did not have quantum relay technology. They certainly did not broadcast messages to the entire galaxy. "Analysis report," he barked at his science officer. "Commander, the transmission points are not random. They form a pattern across known space. Each relay beacon was placed precisely to ensure maximum coverage of inhabited systems." "Oh. Commander. 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 How long have these beacons been in place?" The science officer checked his readings again. "The quantum signatures suggest they have been active for at least 50 standard years. Some may be older. 50 years. Vex Thul felt his blood chill further. 50 years ago, Earth was supposedly just developing basic computer systems. Yet somehow, they had been placing quantum relay beacons across the galaxy. "Sub-Commander Kretak, pull up the files on the 17 systems mentioned in the transmission." The data appeared on the main screen. 17 conquered worlds. 17 successful campaigns. 17 additions to the hegemony empire. All of them productive colonies providing resources and labor for the greater good. "When did we last receive reports from these systems?" Vex Thul asked. Kretak checked the records. "The reports have been irregular, Commander. System 7 went silent 3 months ago. System 12 stopped responding 6 weeks ago. We assumed it was communication equipment failure. Show me all 17 systems. Current status." The map updated. Red markers appeared next to each system name. All 17 were marked as no response. "How is this possible?" whispered one of the junior officers. 17 systems do not just go silent. Vex Thul studied the map more carefully. The systems formed a pattern across space. They were not random conquests. They were strategic positions, supply routes, communication hubs, military staging areas. If someone wanted to cripple the hegemony's ability to wage war, these 17 systems would be perfect targets. "Communications officer, try to contact System 7 directly." "Yes, Commander." The officer worked at his station for several minutes. No response on any frequency. Try System 12. Again. Nothing. Try System 15. Silence. Vexthal's hands clenched into fists. One system going dark might be equipment failure. 2 systems could be coincidence. 17 systems meant war. But war with whom? Earth was supposed to be primitive. Their technology was centuries behind the hegemony. How could they strike at targets across the galaxy? Commander, the communications officer called out. We are receiving another transmission from Earth. Put it through. The same human appeared on screen, still calm, still sitting at his simple desk. But now Vexthal noticed details he had missed before. The wall behind the human showed star charts. Advanced star charts with quantum pathway markings. Commander Vexthal, the human said, and Vexthal nearly jumped. How did this primitive know his name? We know you have questions. The coordinates we transmitted earlier point to systems your empire has conquered. Systems where our people have been waiting. Impossible, Vexthal growled. Those worlds were conquered years ago. We would have detected any infiltration. See. The human smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Would you? Tell me. Commander, how long does it take to truly know a conquered population? How long before you stop watching them so carefully? Vexthal's mind raced. After conquest, it usually took 2 years to establish full control. After that, the hegemony relied on local administrators and automatic systems to manage the population. If someone had infiltrated after the initial occupation, you are claiming your people have been on our worlds for years? Not claiming, Commander. Stating fact. Some have been there since before your conquest. Others arrived during the chaos of occupation. It is amazing how many refugees a war can create. And refugees often get processed into labor camps without much investigation. The human leaned forward slightly. Did you really think you were the only ones in the galaxy with long-term plans? Another officer on the bridge spoke up. Commander, we are detecting movement in System 7. Ships are leaving the orbital stations. What kind of ships? Unknown configuration. They do not match any known hegemony designs, but the quantum signatures are familiar. Vexthal felt a growing sense of dread. Familiar how? They match the quantum relay beacons, sir. The same technology. To Bess. 1,200. End quote. On the screen, the human continued to speak. Your empire has grown large, Commander. Perhaps too large to watch every corner, every world, every person. You conquered our worlds, but you never conquered our people. Who are you? Vexthal demanded. We are the ones you drove from our homes. We are the ones you thought you had destroyed. We are the ones who have been waiting, planning, preparing. The human's voice grew harder. We are the reason your 17 systems have gone silent. The communications officer called out again. Commander, massive ship movements detected in System 12, System 15, System 8, all the systems from the coordinate list. And Commander, the human on screen added, we are just getting started. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Vexthal stared at the blank screen, pieces of a terrible puzzle falling into place in his mind. The coordinates were not threats. They were reports. Each number represented a system that had already fallen, not to outside attack, but to internal revolution. 17 successful operations carried out simultaneously across the galaxy. But if Earth's people could coordinate 17 operations across space, if they had been planning this for decades, if they had the technology for quantum communications, what else were they capable of? Navigation, Vexthal said quietly. How long until we reach Earth? At current speed, 6 hours, Commander. 6 hours to reach a planet that might not be as defenseless as they had believed. 6 hours to face an enemy that had just demonstrated the ability to cripple the hegemony empire. For the first time since beginning this mission, Vex Thul wondered if his fleet was large enough. The data came in pieces as the hegemony fleet moved closer to Earth. Intelligence reports from the 17 silent systems. Intercepted communications. Fragments of recorded messages. Each piece of information made the truth more clear and more terrifying. Vex Thul stood in the intelligence center of his flagship, reading reports that changed everything he thought he knew about this war. The first breakthrough came from System 7, reported Intelligence Officer Mordak. Before communications went dark, one of our administrators transmitted an emergency message. He claimed that half of his processing center staff were revealed to be infiltrators. Infiltrators who had been there how long? According to his report, some had been working there for 15 years, since shortly after our conquest. Vex Thul studied the report. 15 years of loyal service, then sudden betrayal. How is that possible? We scan all workers. We check backgrounds. The scanning equipment was sabotaged, sir. Modified to give false readings. The modifications were so subtle, our technicians never detected them. More reports appeared on the screen, system after system telling the same story. Workers who had served faithfully for years, suddenly revealing themselves to be something else entirely. Security systems that failed at exactly the right moments. Communication networks that went down precisely when backup could not arrive. They were not random infiltrators, Vex Thul realized. There is more, Commander. Mordak brought up another set of files. We found records in System 12 before it went dark. Immigration records that do not match our databases. The files showed lists of refugees processed after conquest. Beings from destroyed worlds. Survivors of battles. Prisoners who had been deemed suitable for labor camps rather than execution. Standard procedure for any hegemony conquest. Look at the dates, Mordak said. Vex Thul looked closer. The refugees had not come from the worlds the hegemony had just conquered. They had come from older battles. Much older battles. These beings were processed as refugees from conflicts that happened 50 years ago. 100 years ago. Some, even older than that. That makes no sense. Refugees from battles a century old? Unless, Mordak said slowly, they were not really refugees. Unless they were survivors from a civilization that had been fighting us far longer than we realized. A new report appeared on the screen. This one made Vex Thul's blood freeze. Commander, we have recovered archived data from our historical military files. There are records of a species the hegemony fought over 800 years ago. A species called humans. The files were old, badly corrupted, but the key facts were clear. 800 years ago, the hegemony had encountered a human civilization, not the primitive Earth they were approaching now, but an advanced spacefaring empire that controlled dozens of star systems. The war had lasted 300 years. The humans had proved to be unlike any enemy the hegemony had ever faced. Where other species fought conventional battles, humans specialized in guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and long-term strategic thinking. According to these records, Mordak continued, the humans were never truly defeated. They were pushed back. Their main worlds burned. Their fleets scattered. But they never surrendered. What happened to them? The files say they disappeared. The hegemony assumed they had died out. The last recorded human activity was 500 years ago. Vex Thul felt the pieces clicking together in his mind. They did not die out. They hid. It appears so, Commander. And while they hid, they planned. The intelligence reports painted a picture that made Vex Thul's stomach turn. For 500 years, humans had been infiltrating hegemony space, not as conquerors, but as survivors. Refugees who claimed to be from destroyed worlds. Workers who took jobs in processing centers and communication hubs. Miners who worked in resource extraction operations. They had spread across the galaxy like seeds, taking root wherever the hegemony allowed them. Always careful, always patient, never revealing their true nature until the time was right. Earth was never their homeworld, Vex Thul whispered. The evidence suggests it was a colony world, a hiding place where they could rebuild and plan. The primitive radio signals we detected were not signs of a young civilization. They were a cover story. End quote. A cover story 500 years in the making. More data flooded in. Analysis of Earth's radio transmissions showed they had been carefully designed to look primitive while hiding advanced quantum signatures. The seemingly random exploration missions humans had sent into space were actually reconnaissance operations, mapping hegemony territories and placing spy equipment. Every failed human colony ship that had disappeared over the past century had actually succeeded in its mission. They had not been lost. They had been infiltrating target systems and establishing sleeper cells. "Commander," Mordak said, pulling up a final report, "there is something else. We have identified the human who spoke to us earlier." A new image appeared on screen. The same gray-haired man who had calmly delivered Earth's message. But now there was additional information. Historical records. Military files. His name is Admiral Marcus Chen. According to our archives, he commanded human forces in the Battle of Kepler Station. That battle took place 400 years ago. Impossible. Humans have advanced medical technology, Commander. Life extension is well within their capabilities. This is the same individual who fought our ancestors centuries ago. Vex Thul stared at the image. The calm, confident face of a being who had been fighting the hegemony since before Vex Thul's great-grandfather was born. A being who had spent 4 centuries planning this moment. "How many of them are there?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. But based on the coordination of the 17 system operations, we estimate the human network includes millions of individuals across hegemony space. They may be the largest resistance organization in galactic history. And they have been watching us, learning from us, preparing to strike for 500 years. "Yes, Commander." Vex Thul looked out at the blue planet growing larger on his screens. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. White clouds swirled over green and blue continents. It looked like any other inhabited world. But now he knew the truth. Earth was not a primitive planet full of helpless natives. It was a fortress world. The hidden capital of a resistance movement that spanned the galaxy. A movement that had just announced its existence by crippling 17 hegemony systems simultaneously. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. "We are receiving another transmission from Earth. Put it through." Admiral Chen appeared on screen again. Still calm. Still sitting at his desk. But now Vex Thul could see the star charts behind him more clearly. They showed every hegemony system, every fleet position, every strategic asset. "Commander Vex Thul," the Admiral said, "I believe by now you have discovered who we really are." "Good. That will make this conversation more honest." "What do you want?" Vex Thul asked. "What we have always wanted, our freedom, and the freedom of every world you have conquered. The difference is that now we are strong enough to take it." The war began everywhere at once. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of hegemony worlds, the human sleeper agents activated. They did not announce themselves with dramatic speeches or grand gestures. They simply began to work, quietly and efficiently destroying the Empire from within. Vex Thul watched the reports flood in as his fleet approached Earth. Each message brought news of another system in chaos. Another carefully planned operation succeeding exactly on schedule. "System 19 reports complete loss of orbital defense platforms," called out the communications officer. The platforms turned their weapons on each other before exploding. "System 23 has lost all communication with ground control centers. Local administrators report that their own security forces have turned against them. System 47 requests immediate reinforcements. They claim their mining operations have been completely sabotaged. The reports came so fast that Vex Thul could barely process them. It was not random chaos, it was surgical precision. The humans were striking exactly where it would hurt the hegemony most. How many systems are affected? He asked. Current count is 67 systems reporting major incidents, Commander. The number is climbing every hour. 67 systems. The hegemony controlled over 200 systems. But 67 included all the major industrial worlds, communication hubs, and military staging areas. If those systems fell, the entire empire would collapse. What kind of resistance are they mounting? Subcommander Kritak pulled up the tactical reports. It varies by system, Commander. In some cases, they are using captured hegemony weapons against us. In others, they seem to have technology we have never seen before. The reports painted a picture of an enemy unlike anything the hegemony had ever fought. The humans did not engage in direct battle. Instead, they struck at infrastructure, communications, and supply lines. They turned hegemony weapons against their makers. They disappeared into civilian populations and struck again from unexpected directions. They know our systems better than we do, Vex Thul realized. They have been studying us for centuries. Commander, the intelligence officer called out, we have received a detailed report from System 31 before they lost communications. What did they find? The administrator managed to capture one of the human operatives. During questioning, the operative revealed information about their network structure. Vexis Thul leaned forward. Any intelligence about the human organization could be vital. The operative claimed that humans have been embedded in hegemony operations for over 300 years, not just as workers or refugees, but in administrative positions. Some have reached high levels of authority. How high? The operative suggested that humans may hold positions in Central Command itself. The bridge fell silent. If humans had infiltrated the highest levels of hegemony command, it would explain how they had access to classified information, fleet movements, and strategic plans. Sir, the navigation officer spoke up, we are now entering the outer system around Earth. Should we begin bombardment preparations? Vex Thul looked at the tactical display. Earth hung in space before them, still looking peaceful and defenseless. But he now knew that appearances could be deceiving. Scan the system for defensive installations. The sensors worked for several minutes, mapping everything within the inner solar system. The results made Vex Thul's hearts skip a beat. Commander, we are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. The third planet's moon is showing artificial structures on the far side. The asteroid belt contains installations that do not match natural formations. What kind of installations? Unknown configurations, sir. The technology appears to be a hybrid of human design and captured hegemony equipment. As if responding to their scans, new contacts began appearing on their sensors. Ships emerging from behind planets, rising from hidden bases on moons, uncloaking from what had appeared to be empty space. Contact count now at 400 vessels, reported the tactical officer, his voice tight with worry. They are moving to surround our fleet. 400 ships. The hegemony fleet had brought 1,000 vessels, but the humans were not trying to match them ship for ship. They were positioning themselves strategically, cutting off escape routes, and creating overlapping fields of fire. Communications incoming from the human flagship, announced the communications officer. Admiral Chen appeared on screen once more. But now he was not sitting at a desk. He stood on what was clearly a military command bridge, surrounded by officers and tactical displays. Commander Vex Thul, the admiral said, welcome to Earth's solar system. I am afraid you will find it somewhat different from what your intelligence reports suggested. You cannot hope to defeat 1,000 hegemony warships, Vex Thul replied, though his voice lacked conviction. Defeat them? Commander, we do not need to defeat your ships. We just need to keep you here long enough. Long enough for what? The admiral smiled. Long enough for the rest of your empire to collapse. New reports flooded the communications channels. System after system going dark. Not just the original 67, but more. The human operations were spreading like a plague across hegemony space. How is this possible? Vexthul demanded. You cannot coordinate operations across the entire galaxy from one system. We are not coordinating them from here, Admiral Chen replied. We are not even coordinating them at all. Each cell has been prepared for this moment for decades. They know their targets, they know their timing, and they know their jobs. They have been waiting for one signal, which we sent when your fleet arrived. The quantum transmission. Exactly. 3 words that told our people across the galaxy that the time had come. Not, we are ready, as in prepared for battle, Commander. We are ready, as in ready to come home. On the tactical display, Vexthul watched more human ships moving into position. But something about their formation seemed wrong. They were not preparing for battle. They were preparing for something else. What are you planning? He asked. We are going home, Commander. All of us. After 500 years of hiding, of pretending to be your subjects, of watching you destroy world after world, we are finally going home. This is your home, Earth. Admiral Chen shook his head. Earth was our refuge, our planning base. But home is wherever our people are free. And after today, that will be everywhere. More reports came in. The hegemony's central command was losing contact with over half of its territories. Military forces were surrendering or switching sides. Administrative centers were being occupied by their own workers. The hegemony has ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years, Vexthul said desperately. You cannot destroy us in a single day. You are right, Admiral Chen agreed. We cannot destroy you in a single day. That is why we spent 500 years preparing. 500 years learning your weaknesses, infiltrating your systems, turning your own strength against you. The Admiral leaned forward. Your empire's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness, Commander. You grew so large that you could not watch everyone, could not verify every identity, could not guard against every threat. You relied on fear and overwhelming force to maintain control. And now? Now your subjects remember that they outnumber you 1,000 to 1. The communication ended, leaving Vexthul staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers watched as report after report confirmed their worst fears. The galactic hegemony was crumbling from within, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The humans had not beaten them in battle. They had made battle irrelevant. 3 days later, the galactic hegemony ceased to exist. Vexthul sat in what had once been his command chair, now a prisoner on his own ship. Around him, human officers worked alongside his former crew, maintaining ship systems and monitoring communications from across the galaxy. The collapse had been swift and complete. Once the human operations began, it became clear that the hegemony had been far more fragile than anyone had realized. Without central coordination, without their key systems, without the fear that had held their empire together, hegemony forces had simply stopped fighting. Some had surrendered. Others had fled to remote systems. A few had tried to maintain local control. But these holdouts were isolated and quickly overwhelmed by their own populations. Admiral Chen stood near the viewing screen, watching Earth grow larger as the captured fleet moved into orbit. The human ships escorted them, but not as conquerors. They moved like guardians, protecting rather than threatening. I do not understand, Vexthul said to the Admiral. You have won. Why do you not claim the hegemony territories for yourselves? Admiral Chen turned to face him. The human looked tired, but satisfied. Because that would make us no different from you, Commander. We did not fight to replace one empire with another. Then what was the point? What do you gain from destroying us? The first, freedom, the Admiral said simply. For ourselves, and for everyone else you have oppressed. Reports continued to flow in from across the galaxy. But these reports were different from the chaos of the first few days. They spoke of cooperation, not conquest, of reconstruction, not destruction. The Zelani system has established a provisional government, reported a human communications officer. They are requesting technical assistance to repair their orbital platforms. The Korthak worlds have formed a mutual defense alliance. They want to coordinate with our security protocols. The Miran colonies are asking for help establishing trade routes with neighboring systems. Admiral Chen nodded at each report. Send them whatever assistance they need. Coordinate with the local human cells to provide technical support. Vex Thul listened in growing confusion. You are helping them rebuild? Of course. We did not free these worlds just to abandon them. But what do you get in return? Admiral Chen looked at him with something that might have been pity. Commander, for 2,000 years, the hegemony has controlled the galaxy through fear and force. You took what you wanted and gave nothing back. That is why your empire was always doomed to fall. We gave them order. We gave them security. You gave them slavery, Admiral Chen corrected. Order enforced by violence is not order. It is oppression. The Admiral moved to a wall display that showed a map of the galaxy. Instead of the red markers that had once shown hegemony control, the map now showed green points of light scattered across space. Each light represented a system that had achieved independence. Look at what is happening, Commander. These worlds are not fighting each other. They are not trying to conquer their neighbors. They are cooperating, trading, sharing knowledge and resources. For now, but without central authority, chaos will return. Will it? Admiral Chen highlighted several sectors on the map. The Zelani are sharing their agricultural technology with the Korthak worlds, who need better food production. The Korthak are providing rare metals to the Miran colonies in exchange for manufactured goods. The Miran are helping smaller worlds develop their own industries. Vex Thul studied the pattern. This was planned too. Not planned, facilitated. While we were infiltrating your empire, we were also making contact with the subject peoples. Not to recruit them for war, but to establish communications, to help them learn about each other, understand their mutual needs and capabilities. You built a network. We helped them build a network. We provided the communication technology and the introductions, but they did the rest. They formed relationships, established trust, created mutual dependencies that benefit everyone. More reports came in. The pattern continued across the galaxy. Former hegemony worlds were not descending into chaos, but were instead forming cooperative alliances. Trade agreements were being signed. Technology was being shared. Defense pacts were being established. The human cells we placed on each world were not just saboteurs, Admiral Chen explained. They were also diplomats, teachers, and coordinators. They spent decades learning about each world's needs and capabilities, then helping connect worlds that could benefit from cooperation. And now? Now they continue that work, but openly, as partners rather than hidden agents. Vex Thul watched the communications continue. Reports of successful harvests being shared between systems. News of technological breakthroughs being distributed freely. Requests for assistance being answered by multiple worlds working together. This will not last, he said finally. Someone will try to dominate the others. It is inevitable. Perhaps. Admiral Chen agreed. But it will be much harder now. The galaxy knows what cooperation can accomplish. They know they are stronger together than apart. And they know that humans will help them resist any new tyrants who try to emerge. You appoint yourselves as galactic guardians? We appoint ourselves as friends to anyone who chooses freedom over tyranny. If that makes us guardians, so be it. Well, Midistan. Well, a new communication came in from Earth's surface. Admiral Chen listened to the report, then smiled. What is it? Vex Thul asked. The last of our sleeper cells have reported in. Operations complete across all sectors. The network is fully activated and operational. How many of you were there? Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. Across all the worlds we infiltrated? Approximately 12 million human operatives. 12 million. Vex Thul tried to comprehend the scope of the operation. 12 million humans, embedded across hundreds of worlds, all working toward this single moment for decades. How long have you been planning this? Since the day your people drove us from our worlds 500 years ago. Since the day we decided we would never again allow any empire to rule through fear and oppression. Admiral Chen turned back to the viewing screen. Earth filled the view now, blue and white and beautiful. We told your ancestors then that we would return. Humanity always keeps its promises, Commander. It just sometimes takes us a while to fulfill them. The ship moved into Earth orbit, joining the hundreds of other vessels that surrounded the planet. But these were not the ships of a conquered fleet. They were the ships of a new alliance. Hegemony vessels flying alongside human ships, alongside craft from dozens of other species. What happens to us? Vex Thul asked. To the hegemony forces who surrender. That depends on you. Admiral Chen replied. Those who choose to join the new galactic community are welcome. Those who want to return to their homeworlds are free to go. Those who insist on trying to rebuild the empire. He shrugged. The galaxy will decide what to do with them. As Vex's Thul watched, shuttles began moving between the ships. Not to transfer prisoners, but to exchange personnel, supplies, and information. Former enemies working together to build something better than what had come before. For the first time in his life, Vex Thul began to understand what the humans had been fighting for. Not conquest, but freedom. Not empire, but cooperation. Not dominance, but partnership. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, Vex Thul thought, as he watched humans and former hegemony soldiers working side by side, that was exactly the point.